Hey Tens, today we're going to learn about how to solve multi-step equations. In the previous video, I will include a link to that in the cards. We were solving one-step equations. Now, let's solve multi-step equations. Some terms to know. Order of operations. You may have heard of them. No, you must have heard of them in 4th or 5th grade. And the acronym that you were most likely given was PEMDAS, which means parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. And you may also have gotten the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," which is basically the same thing except put into a phrase. Huh? Yeah. Oh, my brother just told me he learned the order of operations as GEMDAS, the G being for grouping, but I learned it as PEMDAS, so I'm teaching it to you that way. Besides, they're both basically the same thing. Grouping just includes other grouping symbols like brackets. That doesn't really matter, right? Because parentheses are basically the same thing. Besides, how would you do "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally" with GEMDAS? G's excuse my dear Aunt Sally? Oh, whoops. Does G start with J or G? I forgot. Let me know your opinion in the comments below. Anyways, there was one operation that was left out in PEMDAS, and that is roots. Exponents and roots are inverses of each other. These were the two operations that I was saying I was going to talk about in that first video. And just so you remember, these videos are not part of a series, so they're all independent, but they connect to each other. So I'm including links to videos in the cards that connect with this one. So to include the roots, and since roots can be any root, like square roots or cube roots or fourth roots or fifth roots, just like exponents can be squared or cubed or to the fourth power or fifth power. Since they can also be any value, I have decided to add roots to the acronym PEMDAS, making it PERMDAS. And this is the only term you need to know for this session. Alright, let's take an example. 4 times 9 minus 15 is equal to 21. Now you can see that this is a multi-step equation because 4 times 9 minus 15. Well, which one do you do first? You would use the order of operations normally, right? So you would do 4 times 9 first, which is 36, and then you'd subtract 15 from that, which is equal to 21. And this is true, right? Now, when we replace this part, 4 times 9, with a variable, x, you can see that we have replaced the 9 with x. And remember, 4x is the same as 4 times x, 4 times x, and 4 times x. And remember, in the first video, I explained why you shouldn't use this. And you can see it right there. It's evident. So these are all the same thing. And if we see this, 4x minus 15 is equal to 21. And you can see that since I replaced 9 with x has to be 9. And this is our solution, because you're correct. But how would we solve this? Let's move on to the next slide. So, how do you solve for x? On top of inverse operations, we need to undo those operations in the reverse order of operations. So, when we have variables in the equation, we need to start by undoing the addition and subtraction, then the multiplication and division, then the exponents and roots, and then we need to isolate parentheses if needed. So if you think back to those days of PEMDAS, you need to remember that exponents and roots are on the same level, multiplication and division are on the same level, and addition and subtraction are on the same level. What does this mean? This means that whichever comes first, if roots come first or if exponents come first, whichever come first, you need to solve them from left to right. And it's the same with multiplication and division, and it's the same with addition and subtraction. And again, whatever you do to one side, you need to do it to the other side. It's the same thing. Let's try some examples. So let's take this first one. 2x plus 18 is equal to 42. Remember, as mentioned in the previous slide, we have to undo by reversing the order of operations and undoing it in that order. So we need to do addition and subtraction first. And we can see on this side that this 18 is being added to x. And so we need to subtract this first. Why not divide this? Because remember, if we try to divide 2x plus 18 by 2, we're doing this to the whole side. We're not just doing this to 2x. You cannot separate these. So we need to get rid of the 18 first, and we need to subtract 18 from this side. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side, so we need to subtract 18 from 42 as well. So 2x is equal to 24. And so now we can divide x by 2. So x is equal to 12. And we can check this by plugging in 12 for x. So let's do that. Two times 12. Again, I prefer to use parentheses, but you can use the dot if you want. Plus 18 is equal to 42. And we need to simplify this. 24 plus 18 is equal to 42. Is that true? 24 plus 18 does equal 42, and 42 is equal to 42. So 12 is our solution. Let's try the second one. X divided by 7 minus 4 is equal to -8. We need to see what is interacting with this variable here, and we can see that this 7 is being divided from x, and this 4 is being subtracted from this x divided by 7. And remember, we can't multiply x divided by 7 minus 4 by 7 because we are multiplying this whole side then. So we need to add 4 to this whole side. And this doesn't change anything because it only cancels out these 4's. And what you do to one side, you need to do to the other side. So we need to add 4 to -8 too. And this gives us x divided by 7 is equal to -4. And now we can multiply this whole side by 7 because now we aren't multiplying something else by 7 too. And we can multiply this by 7 too. So this gives us x is equal to negative 28. And let's check this. So negative 28 divided by 7 minus 4 is equal to negative 8. Again, we need to use the order of operations in this. So negative 28 divided by 7 goes first, and that is equal to negative 4. Minus 4 is equal to negative 8. Is that true? Yes, it is. And negative 8 equals negative 8. So x is equal to negative 28. Alright, let's solve multi-step equations using parentheses. Let's take this first one. 8 plus 4x, the whole thing, divided by 8 is equal to negative 5. In the previous slide, we had one term over a division symbol. Now, we're having two terms being added above the division symbol. So, even though you can write this without parentheses, you have to assume that parentheses are still there. So, if I write it like this, you must assume that there are parentheses here. And this changes the whole order of operations because instead of subtracting the 8 first, we need to multiply the whole thing by 8. Because what this does is it cancels out these 8s. And remember, we're multiplying this whole thing by 8. Okay? And then we need to do this to the other side. So we multiply negative 5 by 8. And this turns out to be 8 plus 4x is equal to negative 40. Now, if you're wondering why I have to multiply by 8 first and not subtract 8 from here, it's because if I subtracted 8 first, then this whole equation would become 8 plus 4x for 8 minus 8 is equal to negative 13. And as you can see, that doesn't help at all because then I would add this 8 to both sides and I'd be at the same spot again. So it really doesn't help. Instead, we need to multiply first, and then this cancels out that 8 as if there were parentheses here. And so we get this equation. And now we can solve it easily. So now we subtract 8 from both sides because now that the parentheses are gone, we can do the normal reverse order of operations. So we need to do addition and subtraction first, and so this 8 is being added to x, so we're going to subtract 8. And this gives us 4x is equal to negative 48. And we can divide this whole side by 4. This is now a single step equation. We've simplified it this far, and now we've come to this single step equation, which we can easily solve. And so our answer is x is equal to negative 12. And we'll check this. So we need to plug in negative 12 for x. So we have this equation here. And as you've probably been noticing, we now have to do the normal order of operations to check to see if negative 12 is really our answer. And so that's what we're doing when we're solving multi-step equations. We're not only reversing the inverse operations, we are also reversing the order of operations when we're doing this. So we need to do 4 times negative 12 first, and that gives us 8 minus 48 over 8 is equal to negative 5. And then we solve this because, again, there are invisible parentheses here. So this becomes negative 40 over 8 is equal to negative 5. Now, is that true? Yes. Negative 40 divided by 8 does equal negative 5. So negative 5 equals negative 5, and we're correct. Alright, let's try this last one. 2 times 4x plus 3 is equal to 34. Now, have you heard of the distributive property? You probably have. So that's what we're going to use to get rid of this 2. Or another thing you can do is you can just divide this whole side by 2. So let's go with the second way. So let's divide this whole side by 2 so that we can get rid of this. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side. So we're going to divide 34 by 2 as well. This gives us 4x plus 3 is equal to 17. And now we need to subtract 3 from here because we're back to this normal reverse order of operations. So we need to subtract 3 from 17 as well. And this gives us 4x is equal to 14. Now, 14 is not divisible by 4, but we still have to go through with it so that we can get to what our x is. So we need to divide 4x by 4 and divide 14 by 4 as well. This gives us x is equal to 7 over 2. And if you're wondering how I got 7 over 2, you need to simplify this because on tests you will need to provide the simplest form for your solution. Alright, let's check. So 2 times 4 times 7/2 plus 3 equals 34. Okay, we need to use the order of operations now to solve this. So first we need to solve what 4 times 7/2 is. And 4 times 7/2 is equal to 28 over 2, which is equal to 14. And you can see that here too. So 2 times 14 plus 3 is equal to 34. Okay, we've simplified it a little bit. Now, these are in parentheses, so we need to add these two. And this turns out to be 2 times 14 plus 3, which is 17, is equal to 34. Is this true? Yes, 2 times 17 does equal 34. So 34 is equal to 34, and 7/2 is our answer. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video or it helped you, click that like button. If this didn't help you, click that dislike button. I greatly appreciate feedback. If you want more updates on new videos, click that subscribe button and turn on notifications. If you have any questions relating to this topic, put those in the comments below. And the comment section is the equivalent of a class discussion, so if you have answers to any of the questions asked, you can answer those. If you have any comments or suggestions on how I can improve my videos, or even suggestions on what I should do next, put those in the comments below as well. If I like your suggestion, I'll be sure to include that in the next video and give you a shout out. See you in the next one.